I'm going to unbox and take a look at Conflict of Heroes Awakening the Bear 3rd edition. Now, it's important to note that this is the 3rd edition. Why? Because, well, I have the 2nd edition. Why did I go out and get a 3rd edition when I already have a nice not brand new, but nice, perfectly usable and fun and playable 2nd edition? Well, I got this 3rd edition from Uwe Eichert of Academy Games, who is the proprietor, publisher, and co-designer of this, or actually he and his son are the designer of this 3rd edition. And I was talking with Uwe on a couple of Sundays ago. He was calling me about a Reality Shift, which was a game I'd won from the Gimpy Gamer. I had not gotten it yet, and we started talking about war games, and lo and behold, he said, well, do you have the 3rd edition? I said, no. I said, I started off with, the 1st edition, Conflict of Heroes, Storms of Steel, Kursk, and then had picked up the 2nd edition, Awakening the Bear, and he goes, oh my goodness, you're missing out. You need to get the 3rd edition. Now, why do I need to get 3rd edition? Well, you have to know a little bit about the 1st and 2nd edition. For that, the 1st and 2nd edition has this action point system. Now, the Conflict of Heroes system is a small unit tactical gaming system. What do I mean by small unit tactical? Well, it is platoon. I consider a small unit tactical platoon level and below. So platoon, squad, individual level games. And so this is of that scale. And it is, in that regard, very tactical, and it had an action point system where you get like 7 action points on your turn to use with as you choose. To move stuff, to attack things, or attack the other side. And so it was basically an allotment or an allocation, or the use, how you decide to use your action points is really the tactical nature of the game. Well, what they've done in 3rd edition is I think they've removed that, that set allotment of 7 action points and made it more of a random determination. I think they use that by dice. And so that's something that I wanted to, he says, I really need to experience. And I said, well, of course, that sounds great. So he was kind enough to send me this. So I'm going to be kind enough to unbox it for you all, because I have to unbox it if I want to play it. And, I play my games. So here we go. Let's take a look at the back here. Let's look at the back of the box. I don't think a lot of the art changed. In fact, I think my understanding is that all the games are backward compatible, meaning that you can play with the counters and the maps from the previous editions, and but play with the 3rd edition rules, which has this action point element. Now, I liked the action point element. I'm kind of a connoisseur of sorts of small unit tactical games. In fact, I wrote a piece on it that won a Charlie at one point about the evolution of the small unit tactical games in wargaming. And so I'm always looking at new and different ways to approach this topic. Squad Leader kind of started us off in some respects. It wasn't necessarily the first one on that scale, but it was definitely probably the most popular, and then with Advanced Squad Leader has continued its stay in that area, or in that field of a small unit tactical. So there's a lot of different small unit tactical systems, and they handle ways differently. And I always felt like Conflict of Heroes contributed to that genre by having the action point system. It was a little bit different and a little bit in a unique way of looking at things, and how you and simulating combat, right, or especially the command structure, because you can't do everything. And so you had a limited number of actions. The fact that they've changed it up now to using more of a random allocation, well, that is, I want to see how that plays out. So as you see here, a lot of this is talking about, I think this is very similar to the back of the box. So the other one, I flipped the other one over, but all my counters would fall out because it had a counter tray that came with it, and I imagine this one will as well. But you're basically talking about This starts June 22nd, 1941. Over 3 million German soldiers unleash Operation Barbarossa, striking deep into the Soviet territory. German panzers push to the gates of Moscow, but record-breaking sub-zero temperatures freeze equipment, progress, and morale. The Soviets seize the initiative and begin to shift the war's momentum. The Soviet bear has awakened. So this is kind of picking it up as kind of the counterattack of sorts. But this is Eastern Front, World War II. And as we'll see when we get in here, you can see an example of some of the map encounters here. Maps are good-sized maps, mounted of sorts. I mean, they're not the Avalon Hill mounted, but they're very thick maps, thick board maps that are not, are definitely not paper maps. Let's put it that way. The counters I really like. They're kind of pre-rounded. So, I mean, they just punch out, and there's no need for clipping. And as you can see, the artwork is very nice and evocative of the period. A lot of numbers on that, but, small unit tactical games tend to have a lot of numbers because you're usually, attack, defense, morale. If you got armor, you're going to have, what its defense. It might have different defenses, whether it's flank or front. There might be different types of ordnance that's used, whether it's high explosive or armor piercing. So small unit tactical has a tendency to have a lot of numbers on their counters. So this is 2 to 4 players, 14 plus, and 1 to 2 solo. I think there's a solo system that they eventually released. I thought they released it for the 2nd edition, but maybe there's one for the 3rd edition as well. I don't know if it's contained, if they started concluding it in the box. We'll find out when we get in here, but I do know that they have kind of a standalone solo system for the Conflict of Heroes. So enough of all that intro. You want to see what is in the box here. So let's see if I can get a little bit of a start here on the side so we can see what is in the box. Now, the interesting thing is I kind of consolidate some of my stuff. My Conflict of Heroes Storm of Steel, I have the counters in my 2nd edition because it had a counter tray, and the 1st edition didn't have any of that. And so I keep the maps and the rules in the big flat box, but I do like these boxes a little bit better. I like these, these new ones from Academy Games, which, there are other historical games come in these boxes as well. There's size box, and I generally like it a little bit better, and I like the counter trays. So there you have it. Now, what will I do with my 2nd edition? Well, I've got my counters from my 1st edition in there, so I probably will leave that as it is. But I don't know. I'll see. I do enjoy the action point system. I was used to playing with the action point system, but I'm anxious to see what this new system looks like. So we have this bagged in here. So we have some of our bits bagged. Oh, we got my silica, so I got my silicon take for the day there. Got some X's here. I wonder if that's to mark combats, maybe. I don't know. Oh, another thing I'm seeing right out, just looking in the box, they've got a new counter tray set system in here. This is not what I've seen in the previous editions, but so we have these individual trays here. That look, and you got some dice in there. I kind of like the looks of that. So you can put the individual trays in there. I like that. And then you got some cards. This isn't a card-driven game. As I said, is that the action point system is really the driver of this game, but it does have cards play that kind of augment gameplay and add a little bit more of a little bit more randomness and chaos and a little bit more of more tactical decisions with the card play. So we'll save those for later. Let's get to the counters. I know I got a bag here of stuff, but we'll get to that. I love their counters though. Let's take a look at these here. So you see nice big counters, good thickness. I mean, as thick as you generally get on counters, pre-rounded, so you don't have to worry about clipping. I'm not a clipper by nature or by desire. So, and then they're double-sided here. Nice counters there. They're not using the NATO symbols. You're actually seeing the imagery of your squads and your, here's a wagon. So you got a horse and wagon there. and you get the profile of the tanks and the vehicles. I like that. I like the look of them. And we've got some more here. And you got some like pillboxes and or fortified positions here. And those are the Soviets. Of course, you've got double-sided. Then we have administrative counters, because again, in a small unit tactical, you're going to have conditions, like you're going to be putting on your squads and your units. Berserk, unnerved, suppressed, pinned. Suppressed and pinned are common elements in small unit tactical games. Then just keep track of your action points. Now this says this is 6 of 6, and this was 4 of 6, and this was 2 of 6. So I got 2, 4, and 6. So the sheet 1 is, so that's interesting. The sheet is the back, and I don't know if I've seen it labeled that way. So there's your 6 sheets are the front and back. There you have it. I thought I was missing something there. We get the maps here. Oh, and they're all wrapped together, and then nothing left in the box here. We'll look at the maps here in a second. Let's unload. Let's dump the bag and see what we get in here. So here is your mission round. So this is a little bit thicker stock, not mounted, kind of a typical player aid stock to track victory points in your mission round. Then we've got your command action points. And I think that was on a bigger page in the previous version of that. Then another one for your command action points. This percent, I'm not sure if I remember that from the last time, but this table displays the probability of spent check failure for a given action cost. So you got 4 of these, because you go up to 4 players, I guess, right? Then we have a Academy Games 2022 catalog, and Academy and Apollo, and that as I mentioned, I was talking about Reality Shift with Uwe and Uva. Apologize, I've mispronounced any of that. And Apollo is their sci-fi or maybe sci-fi fantasy, or maybe more sci-fi element or arm of Academy Games. There's the catalog there. Here is a player aid that you have 2 of these. So this is to explain the counter. So as you can see, there's a lot of information on that counter, but it's kind of needed because you're getting into, drilling down into a little bit more detail of these squads. So you've got attack cost, firepower, move cost, defense. You've got the unit picture. You've got the attack range. In the defense can be soft or armored. Movement cost could be foot or wheeled or tracked. Firepower is soft or armored. So you've got a lot of information conveyed in a small space there. You've got your command turn actions. So these are the actions you can do. You've got your combat over here and some modifiers. Pre-round sequence, your common cap modifiers. Again, this action point is the heart of the system. Then you have your, which is common in war games that we're used to, map and overlay. So this is your terrain effects. So you got your terrain modifiers, whether it's a defense, blocks, line of sight, or conceals. You've got a movement cost penalty to foot, tracked, or wheeled. And then you've got a picture of what that, and a description of what that terrain is. Then you got some other markers here, fortifications and obstacles, and then all their effects on terrain, movement and terrain and combat and the like. So you get 2 of those, which is nice. Then we have both a mission book and a rule book. Now, query whether the mission book changes much. I don't know if they either added missions or if the rules, since they've changed the action point system a little bit, did it change the missions? I don't know why it would, but I guess it could. So we'll take a look at that. Here is your rule book, which full color comes out at 39 pages. You've got a full index on the back. You've got a description of the battle cards. Those are these cards here. You've got some description of the counters, so it gives you, so you can do like a inventory if you wanted to of the different kind of counters that are involved. Note from the designers. Let's start at the beginning now that we know it's 39 pages. Here's how you can set up your counter sheets here, or counter trays, I should say. But choose a side, place a map, set up units, place your command action point markers on here. Then you've got your round markers up here. You got to prepare a hit draw pile. That's that. Those are those modifications or those conditions and stuff that you see right there. As you see there, there's the back there of those. There's the front of some of those things or what they could be. Then you've got your setup for the mission. So you'll look at the mission book here and then set it up. I mean, anybody who's played a mission-based war game or scenario-based, then you're used to this. I mean, goes back to Panzerblitz, where they had the scenario-based missions, or war game, I should say. So here's an example of that. Then you get the game overview, notes to returning gamers. So this is going to talk about, right here, the 3rd edition rules. Change several key elements of Conflict of Heroes from previous editions. A unit no longer receives 7 action points. Instead, each turn a player selects one of the units to take an action. After completing that action, they roll a custom D10 to determine if the unit becomes spent. If a player rolls higher than the action cost, the unit is free to continue taking actions on the turn. So it's interesting that mechanism, to me, harkens back to... it's been used in a lot of games, but the one that jumps to my mind is the kind of the great battles of history, where a leader is trying to continue command, and it's all about rolling on the leader. Leader gets to move its units under its command, and then it gets to roll to see if it can kind of continue the initiative or momentum, or the other side might be able to interdict or try to take over that momentum. That's not what's going on here per se, but it feels a little bit like that, where you're rolling for a unit to see, can it keep going? Can it still keep its momentum? That's an interesting thing here, and I imagine that's probably what that percentage spent check is what that's talking about there. So like for its first move, it's 100%, but then each time you do another action, I guess it becomes, there's a greater probability that it could be spent, or maybe that's reverse. So 1 point you only have a 20% chance, but if you've done 7, it's going to be spent. There you go. I'll eventually get the math right. Just give me enough time. Here's your table of contents, and it looks like it has a learn as you go type system. So you read this, you play mission 1, then you learn about group actions, play mission 2, hidden units, play mission 3, so on. So you'll be, after you get up to rule 19, you'll be able to play all the missions because you'll know all the rules. Here's how to use this rule book, and that's what they're I think they're saying here, is that you're going to learn a little bit, play a mission, learn a little bit, play a mission. And I believe the other one had that too. I started out playing it that way. I don't know if the first edition had that, but I'm pretty sure the second edition had some of that same feel to it. As you can see here, there's a lot of stuff on a page, but there's also a lot of imagery. It's all full color, so you're getting examples of what they're talking about. I like that. That's very, although if you're new to wargaming, a lot of information there, but seeing images and examples is something that you might see in a Euro game. So this in that regard, this might be a good introductory type game, although I'm not saying introductory from a complexity standpoint. This still has a fair amount of complexity to it. Just look at the numbers on the counters. But the concepts and the way it's portrayed, it might be a good way if someone is wanting to get into small unit tactical combat. I don't know. I think this might be a better entry point than, let's say, Advanced Squad Leader. I'm just saying. Kind got here. So you've got some highlighted areas. There are probably different notes or examples of things. And again, this action point is really is the key to the game here, and how you use your action points. Position and movement, fire zone, combat, and these are kind of reduced to one page to talk about some of these different aspects. So that's kind of a nice way to contain it. Now, combat's going to go over a few pages here because it's combat. Here's hits and rallying. So this is what happens after combat, or the effect of combat. Cards. There are two categories of cards designed on their backs as battle cards or weapon cards. The cards have an ID number. There's no limit to the number of cards a player may hold. Unplayed cards may be held into for future rounds. So yeah, this is that kind of augmentation of the game with the battle cards. Here's round end. Then you're supposed to stop here and play the game, right? Or play some of the missions. And then you've got group actions here. So you got a few more rules on group actions. You've got hidden units, which this will, kind of hinder the solitaire play. But again, I think there is a solitaire rule set for this that might deal with aspects like hidden units. Hills and elevation, mortars and artillery, vehicles. Now a lot of games, like Combat Commander, for example, didn't start out with a lot of vehicles. A lot of small unit tactical games, they tend to focus on infantry and then maybe progress up to vehicles over time. One thing about Conflict of Heroes, you got vehicles right out of the box or right in the box. And because that's a huge element to, especially to the Eastern Front combat during World War II. Here's special units, fortification and obstacles, and there you flamethrowers, alternate player count. So there you go. So that is the rules. The missions are going to be, again, there's a lot of advancing type missions. You're going to learn as you go type situation. Here is some background on it. And then they're talking about some specific, some different counters that you might be using here. This is the mission number 1, is the partisans. So they're going to be a heavy part of this first mission here. Here's your setup. So you got your German orders, Soviet orders, the different forces, and then how it's going to look on the map. And then there's mission 2 and so on. So there's just mission after mission. And so this whole book is like mission 11. Now we're getting into, we're playing with fire here. We're cooking with fire. We're playing with fire. Yeah, these are some more detailed and advanced type of missions here. So how many do we get? We get 15 missions. So that's quite a few missions in here. And then we got a little bit more continuation of the history of it all. So there you have it. Now let's get into the maps themselves. Sorry for this one's kind of going over, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the difference, this whole new action point spent check. And I also wanted to, now you're seeing the freckles on my arm. That is awesome videography there. Okay, I'm gonna have to move some room here because these maps are a good size here. As you can see, they're mounted or thick maps here. And one thing that's interesting about these maps is they really let the terrain speak for itself. You have these hashed or dashed hexes, so you can see the hex grid, so you know where your unit's at, but it's not a thick black line that's blocking a lot of the terrain. So a good and bad of it. The good of it is it, again, lets the terrain speak for itself. You get a good look at what the terrain looks like, and with counters on that, you get a feel for clear forest, roads, and where your unit's at. Now, when it comes to how to move that unit and where it's located at, at a glance, it's a little bit harder because of these are really kind of faint at times. So you're going to have to get a little bit closer to see how that works. So I'm kind of a fan of it because this is supposed to be tactical. So you're really into the closer close-up combat, and features of the terrain are much more important and pronounced in that kind of combat. So to see it played out on the board like that, to me, is I like that. So there's one of the maps there. There's another one here. They're only single-sided, so you have a limited number of maps, and you can't flip them over. But they're good-sized maps, and there's a lot of good detail on them here, as you can see. Got some buildings there. And this is Eastern Front, so this is the kind of terrain. And you can see the elevation here. Looks like there's a little bit of a cliff of some sort. Looks like we got a walled area here. Some fields out here. And now we're getting into more of a urban area here. So some bigger buildings, a lot of outbuildings over here. So very much some urban combat to get into over here. So there you have that. So that is the those are the maps. Let's look at some of these cards here. And I think yeah, there's a little tag here. So they said you're going to have battle and equipment cards. So let's take a look at what we have here. Here are the battle cards. A little bit of a linen finish, and the cards are nice quality, a little thin, but nice quality with the linen finish on there. So like this is going to give you kind of an action or an event, like adrenaline, one free action. So you're going to get a free action. A spent unit may take one free action cost any cost. So even if a unit is spent, you can take this free action there. Iconic image there. So these are all things that can, again, you're holding this in your hand, so it kind of augments play. Oh, we got 2 decks in here. There's a solo expansion. We'll have to look at that in a second. I think that's an advertisement for it. So here are the weapons card. All these weapons cards. No, they got some more battle cards in here. These are more battle cards. Then we have the weapons cards here. Grenades, Molotov cocktail, demolition, divisional artillery, and then a 122 millimeter howitzer. So you got some weapons cards there. And then what is this? This is this is just an advertisement. So they individually wrapped an advertisement. So this is that solo expansion I was mentioning earlier. Then they also have a mission generator. So you have the 15 missions that come in this, but then with that mission generator, you can create your own, do it yourself. I think you can probably do it without having the mission generator, but having the mission generator something like that will add balance to the game, because then you can figure out, well, what units should be going up against what other units, and should I put any other limitations on the scenario, stuff like that. So you got 2 6-sided dice there. Then we have the 10-sided die there. And then we have our X's. So there you have it. That is what you get in a box of Awakening the Bear 3rd edition. I'll probably end up doing some more content information on Awakening the Bear, or on Conflict of Heroes system, I should say, because I do like this system. I'm anxious to play with the new spent check aspect of the game. I think that's going to be interesting, to say the least, and does add a lot of different gameplay to this. I mean, you just don't have your 7 units. You've got to earn them, so to speak, over time. Anyway, I want to thank Academy Games. I want to thank Uva, and I want to thank Gimpy, the one that kind of started this all off, because he gave away something on Christmas and I didn't get it, and then Academy contacted me and led to this. And there might be more coming. I know they have some more stuff in the works, and I'm more than happy to take a look at and do whatever's needed to talk about these games, because I really Academy Games, in my opinion, is some of the best quality out there. I'm not saying that as a negative on anybody else's quality, but they just have the counters, the maps, the rules. Everything is just really, really good quality, some of the best in the business, and the art and everything, the whole presentation. And the games are good as well. I mean, heck, it can look good, but, does it taste good? These taste good. Anyway, thanks all for stopping by, and let me know your thoughts on this system, and what do you think about the changes between the second and the third edition. Feel free to drop those comments down below, and thanks for sticking around this long. So this was a long one. Bye. Thanks for watching.